so here we are on another episode of On Foodable, where we get inside the minds of some really great people. Today I've got Randy Garutti here with me from Shake Shack, CEO.
Morning, Paul. How you doing?
I am great. A lot of our viewers may not know necessarily the story of Shake Shack and how it's connected to Union Square and Danny Meyer and all of what the kind of that iconic brand that you guys have built out of another restaurant group. Can you tell us a little bit about that story, Randy?
Yeah, it's important to understand that we have a 28-year history of running fine dining restaurants. Danny Meyer started Union Square Cafe in 1985, when every restaurant in New York that was good had a le or a la in front of it,
right.
And it was stuffy and service wasn't kind, and the word hospitality wasn't something you talked about. And Danny changed all that. He made it okay to have great food, incredible sincere hospitality with your sleeves rolled up.
Yeah.
And he did that. And he built Union Square hospitality with Union Square, Gramercy Tavern, Tabla, 11 Madison. And then there was a park, Madison Square Park, outside of our fine dining restaurants that had fallen into disrepair. And Danny, with the Madison Square Park Conservancy, raised a fund to recreate and rejuvenate this park. And the first thing they did was an art exhibit where the artist said, my exhibit is going to be New York taxis on stilts, and underneath it, I want to serve hot dogs. All of a sudden, 50 people, 75 people, 100 people would line up to get our Chicago-style hot dogs.
Right.
We did that for 3 years, and every penny we made went to the Conservancy to help rejuvenate that park. And after the 4th year, they said, let's do something permanent, and we built Shake Shack.
Right.
Never intending for there to be anything more than a little hot dog joint. And we opened that in 2004, the original Shake Shack, 400 square foot little kiosk in the park. And the rest is history.
Your brand, of course, is one of the most loved brands, in fact, the most loved brand in terms of what we're seeing around the whole social audience here in New York and abroad. Voted as #1 out of 6,000 brands in the industry for this last year. Why is it that it connects so well to a New Yorker and a guy down in Lincoln Road in Miami and someone in Philly? What makes that model work?
What we've always said for Shake Shack is it's about the experience. It's a community gathering place of people who come together from every walk of life. I don't think this brand could have been created 20 years ago. Now people want to know where their food comes from. Shake Shack is the place where people who say, I don't really eat fast food, but I still love a good burger.
Yeah.
And when I have one, I want it to be a good value, and I want to know the ingredients matter. We just have taken that step by step by step and undone what I think fast food ruined over the last 60 years, which at one time they probably had right. And I think that has created a brand by accident. This is a place where you come in and you hang out and you're with other people. And that then translates into a love of a brand, and people then tell our story for us. We don't need to tell our story as much because our guests are out there doing it for us.
The real estate is part of, I think, your magic. You guys, of course, select these iconic locations or places that can become iconic. If you look at like where we're from, Miami, you've got Lincoln Road, which is an iconic location in South Beach and in that area. You're right there in the midst of what is some of the best dining in the area. But when I walk by a Shake Shack, it's, the patio's full, there's always people hanging out, kids running around. So how are you able to, in the midst of New York where you've grown up pretty much, I mean, you guys got some heavy competitors here. It's not fun and games. How do you think that model has pulled together? Is it just the whole thing, or do you think there's some little magical aspect that you guys bring?
Well, I think the New York history of what we do, there's probably a handful of brands who've ever been created out of New York, right? It's very hard to work in New York and then figure out how that works outside, which is why we went to Miami early. That was our 3rd Shake Shack, Miami. And we were down on Lincoln Road in a section of Lincoln Road that at the time was the furthest away section where people didn't really go.
That's right.
But we believed in the developer, Robert Wennett, and his incredible project and the architecture of this parking lot that he built and the brands he was surrounding us with. And we believed that would make sense. When we look at real estate, we look for a place that can be a beehive of activity where everyone's passing by and everyone wants to go to as a destination.
Right.
But when both of those things exist, we seem to hit it really well. And whenever we're looking for a spot, especially in New York, where we understand New York City really well, you've got to get it right. If you're one block off, it can be a completely different thing.
Yeah. So Randy, you said something in the pre-show that intrigued me, and you said your managers hang out with the guys at Gramercy Tavern. So that's you're looking at two completely different types of restaurants, operations, menu level, even to a certain level, maybe the style of how you operate a restaurant itself. What is the connection there between upper scale fine dine and what you're doing at Shake Shack from an employee basis that makes that work?
When we build our team, we were able to excite a number of young leaders who were working in our fine dining restaurant, myself included. I was one of the people who had been in Danny's company for 14 years, working in fine dining, growing up with that understanding of hospitality and care and premium. Our culinary director, Mark, was a cook at Gramercy Tavern. Our operations leaders, most of them have come from Tabla or our other restaurants in our fine dining company, and they all bring that. Union Square Cafe. Our team really brings a balance of understanding our company's history with now growing leaders, training future leaders is kind of how we say it, that there's a whole group of us balanced out of fine dining, previous chain experience, veterans of a larger industry, and bringing that together is a great tension that forces us to think differently.
That's got to be able to leverage what you guys are trying to do from a global perspective and some of your new markets, the development of other countries. Can you talk to us a little bit about how the growth plan is working for Shake Shack?
Yeah, so domestically, we own and operate all the restaurants domestically. We're growing at a nice pace. We've had great success this year in Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Florida, Connecticut, and now Boston. But this next year, we'll go to Chicago, we'll go to Atlanta, and at some point later in the year, we'll end up doing one in Las Vegas as well. So we want to do them when there's a community asking for it.
Right.
When we've developed enough leaders to do it.
Sure.
And when each other Shake Shack gets better in the process. That's one of our rules. If we're not getting better here, we're not allowed to go keep opening elsewhere. And that's a governor for us.
How does the international model work?
Very early on, we were blessed with the opportunity from an incredible leader named Mohammed Al-Shaya, who came to us and said, we had 2 restaurants, 2 shacks, and we had just opened the second. We went to Dubai and Kuwait, and what we witnessed there were Western brands that were run as well or better than they were here.
Interesting.
And we teamed up with the Al-Shaya company. We opened a restaurant in Dubai, we opened a restaurant in Kuwait, and we started to grow under a license arrangement that has taught us both a lot of great things. And today, we have about 13 restaurants overseas. The Middle East is a large market for us, but this year we opened in Istanbul, 2 restaurants that are really exciting, fun, and busy. We opened in London this year, in Covent Garden. That has been a spectacular, fun thing for us that's been rocking since we opened. And later this year, we'll go to Moscow, actually, at the end of the year or beginning of next year, with a partner there. So we're excited. We see the world as a collection of great cities. It's not about the country, it's a collection of great cities. Shake Shack is a place where people come together in every city from all walks of life. And we'd rather go to the great cities of the world in the time that we can and get there. And so we're looking forward to some strong international growth for the brand that seems to be working with people.
Yeah. Well, Randy, it seems like you guys have got your stuff together. And you've been kind of connected to this new age consumer from the foodie side. Obviously, it's resonating with how they're using it. We want to thank you so much for stopping in on this episode of On Foodable. It's been great coming in to learn a little bit more about Shake Shack.
Well, thanks. I hope you guys will come in anytime. We're here for you. Thank you.